Obviously, right now, everything in television has always historically been defined by scale, and I think we're defining it as what the role of data and reaching specific audience segments, your most high-valued audience segments within your media plan, or not even within your media plan, but for our customer or our clients to get to their key customer, and that's how we're defining that. That's how we're defining addressable. Obviously, there's numbers and scale associated to it, but that's the core gist of it. DirecTV and Dish have, and Cablevision, of course, have been selling addressable advertising for a number of years. So it's and have achieved significant scale. And we're excited for Comcast to come on board and scale their platform, and as well Charter and Time Warner Cable. When that merger is complete, we're really bullish on what they'll be able to offer. And then when you take all of that together, that's critical. That's beyond critical mass. That in some ways will help clients sort of have to rethink about the role of TV in the context of their media plan, because you're looking at numbers of 60 million, 70 million plus. And it's really exciting. So it's started off with auto and financial advertisers. For addressable television specifically. We've also seen a lot of CPG companies and a lot of other clients, travel, tourism, even retailers coming into the fold and showing interest in addressable and driving movement. So I would say holistically, from an advanced TV perspective, not just addressable, talking about data-driven television buying, audience buying, and connected TV, we're seeing adoption across all business verticals. So it's not just an auto finance driven marketplace anymore.
So Matt, so break it down a little bit. The addressable, the household specific, then the programmatic TV, the stuff you're doing with Tube. Explain that sort of it, what some people call programmatic TV.
Sure. So how we refer to it is we refer to the whole notion of using data to make a smarter television buying decision is advanced TV. Then there's sort of two parts of it. Household addressable is obviously one-to-one to the household level. So how do I drive a conversation or storytell to a specific household based off of their audience composition or purchasing tendencies? And then audience buying is using data, most likely fused with set-top box data, to get a deeper understanding of where and when my key customer will be watching television. So for example, I'm an auto client and I want to reach truck contenders. How do I reach a truck contender, and how do I drive incremental reach on top of my base plan to reach a truck contender at a more efficient cost against that strategic target, lower than before? So and that's really at the network day part program level. So how do I use data to drive incremental reach to my base television plan against that strategic target?
And how about the cost, both operationally and the cost for advertisers? I mean, clearly there's efficiency here, but the pricing scenario is different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more about how do I deliver a lower cost to reach my key customer, or not even a lower cost, but some sort of output that is more meaningful than an age, sex, demo, CPM efficiency. How do I drive a brand metric? How do I drive a business metric? How do I drive a sales outcome? And that's really the focus, as opposed to, okay, how do I lower my adult 25 to 54 CPM by 10%? We want more meaningful outputs that are more relevant to a client's business and moving their business forward. We're at critical mass now, so I think there's no question that the addressable television marketplace should be higher than what it is. I think it's still small percentage points within the context of an upfront or a scatter plan, or the upfront and scatter market. So I do think it has a lot of room to grow. I do think over the next few years we'll probably be at a point where the supply and demand curves will be a little difficult to endure for an advertiser. So we'll probably have to open up more national avails, and I think that'll be a huge theme over the next 12 to 24, 36 months as Charter comes on board, as Comcast comes on board. How do we then accelerate that or augment that with national inventory? And I think that's not a conversation for today, although it is in small scale, but I think that will be a consistent theme you'll be hearing over the next 12, 24, 36 months How do we open up that pool to national advertisers, national commercial breaks?
Sure. And, speaking about the upfront, so what do you think the media planning community thinks about this advanced TV stuff? Is it still kind of on the edge, or is it sort of part of the conversation, or where does it fit in?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it has to be. I mean, that's the upfront, or is the way a client or marketers go to market and spend their television video dollars. So an audience-based approach to that upfront is definitely a relevant conversation. I think this time of year, as you can see by the NBC announcement, and there's tons of announcements out there about how do we use data to drive performance within the context of their television offerings. I think that's going to be a consistent theme in the role that it plays within a client's upfront strategy or their go-to-market strategy is going to only increase. I still do think that it's much the relative scale of that. It's probably only accounts for 1%, maybe 2% of the total upfront dollars. There's a huge opportunity to how do I use data to make my upfront plan work harder, and I think you're going to see that kind of grow and accelerate over the next few years. I think data is a critical piece. I mean, that's if you're promising a client, a customer, or some sort of brand output or some sort of sales increase, you have to have really good data, really precise data, and really predictive data to understand where that customer is. So I think arguably it has to get better, especially if our metric that we're being held accountable for is some sort of sales increase. So it has to get better, and I think clients are using a mixture of first-party data, CRM data. How do I leverage that has been a huge theme, I think, over the past year or so, is how do I use my CRM data to complement third-party data from Experian or Axiom or Polk or whatever the provider is. But I think there is going to be a huge theme over the next 12 months is how do I improve the data, how do I make it more predictive, and how do I accelerate the specificity of that data for a client's needs to deliver whatever KPI that they want to, that I need to deliver for them. Obviously, the Comscore Rentrak merger is a huge testament to the need for one unified metric across all screens. I think in an addressable world, it's extremely relevant because I want to reach that customer regardless of screen that they're consuming on. So I think that will continue to accelerate. I think the reason why I'm part of the Cadreon sort of family within IPG Media Brands is because when you're driving an audience-based solution to television, why would I make that siloed from my audience-based solution across all other video platforms? So it made sense to just we want to have one unified view of the customer, one specific data set, one specific audience, and deliver that messaging and be able to storytell across screens. So yes, to answer your question, it's improving day by day, and it's becoming increasingly more important as we think about a screen neutral or screen agnostic approach to video.